Welcome to Lyons Township High School. My name is Brian Waterman. I'm honored to serve as the superintendent here at LT, and we appreciate everyone coming out on this beautiful 65-degree February night, which is unusual. But again, we're excited that you're here. We're excited to see everyone here and really proud to share what we think is some exciting work happening here at LT. I want to just say a few words about tonight's format. We're going to plan to spend about 20 minutes or so. I'm going to share kind of an overview of all the projects that we have happening coming up here at LT. And then, we really feel like most of you are here tonight to talk specifically about the South Campus portion of that. So we're going to spend way more time kind of sharing some details of what's happening at South Campus here. And then we want to give our audience a chance to ask some questions and get clarification on some of those South Campus projects as well. So we'll have plenty of time at the end to do that. So our goal is to, again, spend about 20 minutes and then take some questions and hopefully provide some clarification. LT has a long, proud history of success, and we're certainly working diligently to build upon that tradition. And overall, our goal always is to make LT the best possible place it can be. And the way that we feel like we need to do that is to continually evolve and really ensure that the education that we're providing, the support we're providing, is reflective of our motto, which is excellence, innovation, and empowerment. A big part of this effort is all related to facilities and making sure that our facilities reflect the needs of our students and the 21st century that we're living in. We also know that that doesn't happen without the amazing support of our community. And we feel fortunate to be a part of a community that really has the highest expectations when it comes to education, the highest expectations when it comes to support, and of course the highest expectations when it comes to our facilities and maintaining them and renovating them. So later this spring, we're excited to embark on Groundwork for a Brighter Future, which is our multi-year journey that has a very important overall goal of modernizing our two campuses and enhancing the learning environment for all of our future students. This work, Groundwork for a Brighter Future, reflects our district's commitment to ensuring that all of our facilities support high-quality in-class learning and extracurriculars that foster the academic, physical, social, and emotional growth and well-being of our students. This goal and this journey also aligns with Goal 5 of our strategic plan, which is to upgrade our district's facilities to support the modernization of our classrooms. So overall, we expect this project, Phase 1, we expect the overall project to be 2 phases, but Phase 1 we expect to be a 3-year, approximately $40 million renovation to both of our campuses. Phase 1 includes projects at both North Campus and South Campus. However, the primary focus of summer of 2024, which is this coming summer, is here at South Campus. We anticipate that the North Campus part of this Phase 1 will begin in the summer of 2025. And while the planning for Phase 2 has not yet begun, we have conducted some facilities, mechanical assessments, and community input process, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. That also has identified approximately $85 to $100 million worth of improvements that will be necessary following the completion of Phase 1, which we expect to be in 2026. So tonight we're going to share an overview of this project, how we engaged our community in the planning process, some of the broad objectives that we're attempting to accomplish, details on the South Campus portion of this, and then most importantly, how we anticipate funding this initial work. And then of course, we're also going to share some details on South Campus. So I want to begin with the planning process. From 2019 to 2021, District 204 began conducting comprehensive facilities mechanical assessments in order to evaluate our current facilities. This was the result of building and site walkthroughs by representatives of our architecture firm, DLA, they're with us tonight, and then also Berg Engineering Consultants. This assessment was really intended to identify systems and assemblies which over time require repairs, maintenance, or replacement. So this assessment became a living, breathing document that we review on an ongoing basis and really is critical in maintaining our high-quality, safe, and education environments. This assessment overall found that our facilities are well-maintained, cared for, and very clean, which is, we believe, is a tribute not only to our district's maintenance staff, but also to our students, our staff, and our community who use these facilities on a daily basis. Ultimately, that work from 2019 to 2021, which was facilities and mechanical assessments, really served as a stepping stone for repairs and maintenance that has occurred over the last couple of years at both campuses. I can name just a few projects: installation of air conditioning here at South Campus. We've had roof maintenance work at North Campus. There's a whole host of other things that have happened here over the last 3+ years. And certainly, while the facilities and mechanical assessment continued to be reviewed and updated on that ongoing basis, we also wanted to get stakeholder input from our community on what our needs are when it relates to facilities, and really to help us identify some future priorities for any facility work. So beginning in the fall of 2022, it was actually September of 2022, it was about 1.5 years ago, we administered a survey and conducted focus groups throughout that fall, and really wanted to identify what those broad objectives are. So we got input from students, from staff, from parent guardians, from community members on their perceptions of our facilities, and then again to identify those priorities. So from a broad perspective, the following priorities were identified from our community in terms of future project planning. Our community spoke loud and clear that we want, that they want and we want modernized classrooms. So modernization of existing classrooms to meet 21st century needs were really important. Developing additional collaborative spaces for students and staff. Education has changed and is changing in terms of what a classroom setup looks like, and the need for additional collaboration spaces is really important in a 21st century high school. Accessibility and life safety upgrades is a really important part of the work that we do, an important part of what we need in a school. Improvements and additions to student and community athletic and wellness facilities was identified as a high priority. And then finally, upgrading our HVAC systems and really making additional progress towards installing air conditioning for improved temperature control was a really important priority as well. So with these broad objectives established by our community about 1.5 years ago, our Board of Education, our leadership team, has continued the planning work throughout the last 18 months by identifying specific projects that meet those broad objectives overall. And so within this phase 1 that we're talking about, we have what we believe are a variety of projects that help us progress towards those community broad objectives. At South Campus, we have the construction of a new cafeteria and collaborative common space. We also have renovation to existing music facilities that will be displaced through the construction of a cafeteria and collaborative space. At North Campus, we have classroom modernization project and installation of additional air conditioning, which will get us closer to having a fully air-conditioned campus. At both campuses, we have a desire to renovate and modernize our restroom facilities and also include accessibility as a part of that, which we're really lacking right now. We also have some wellness and athletic projects. Installation of turf field at each campus is in the plans as well, and then some maintenance on roofs and things like that are also included in that phase 1 project. So overall, our goal was and continues to be to prioritize projects that will enhance and modernize our teaching spaces, our learning spaces, with new ways to use technology and spaces for collaboration. But we also have to continue to identify those critical maintenance and infrastructure needs in order to minimize those long-term costs and any potential damage to our facilities. And so, most importantly, we wanted to identify projects that meet those objectives that our community said were really, really important about 1.5 years ago. So that's kind of an overview of what we're looking at within Groundwork for a Brighter Future for phase 1. I think it's also important to share a summary of how we anticipate funding phase 1. And remember, this is long-term. This has the potential to be a 2-phase project, but we're really just focused on that first phase 1, approximately 3-year, approximately $40 million project. The primary source of funding for our phase 1 is via proceeds from the district selling bonds, which our district typically does about every 10 years. And those of you that are familiar with our community know that about 20 years ago, in 2004, 2005, the district sold bonds at that time and added this space that we're sitting in right now, the Performing Arts Center. Also added the field house and the swimming pool at South Campus, and then some other projects as well. And then fast forward 10 years later to 2014, 2015, that was the next opportunity the district had to sell bonds. And the primary project included in that was a new North Campus cafeteria and collaborative space. There was also some office areas that were renovated at South Campus, but the primary part of that was the cafeteria. And then, of course, the Reber Center at North Campus was also renovated at that time as well. So now we're sitting here in 24-25. We have another opportunity to take care of some really important facilities needs. So that's where that funding comes from. So the proceeds from 2 recent bond sales, one in October and one in December, January, has provided our district with $27.4 million, which will be utilized for phase 1 of this project. In addition to those bond sale proceeds, we typically spend about $2.5 to $3 million annually on capital improvements and facility upgrades. So over a 3-year period, that will provide the district with about $7.5 million additional dollars towards the completion of phase 1 projects. And then finally, we anticipate that the district will use anywhere from $6 to $10 million from the district's fund balance or reserve account to be used towards making progress on those phase 1 projects. So overall, through bond sale proceeds, through annual capital improvements, expenditures, and then expenditures from our district's fund balance, the total funding sources for phase 1 is anticipated to be between $40.9 and $44.9 million. So that just shares a little bit about the overall funding. All of the information that I just shared in about 10 or 15 minutes is included on a facilities website that we have developed. It actually launched back in early January. The QR code on your screen will take you to that website. It shares all the information that I just shared, plus much, much more in terms of the projects, in terms of the planning process, in terms of the funding sources. And then, of course, we've added some project renderings and pictures on there. And that's going to be our warehouse for all of these projects moving forward. So we'll continue to update that with the latest information. So tonight, though, we want to drill down and talk a little more about the South Campus part of this, which essentially comes down to the development, construction of a new cafeteria and collaborative space, also the renovation of our existing music facilities, which is our band, our choir, and our orchestra. And so we're going to talk about that, and with that, I'm going to introduce our representatives from DLA. Are we starting with Ed, right? Okay, so I'm going to introduce Ed Wright from DLA, who's going to share with us the South Campus part of the projects. And Ed Tennant, if you want to share share those renderings. If
I can actually see this from
here. I don't think you'll need this because I think he's in a clip.
Okay. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Waterman. So, bear with me as I try and look at this from an angle and talk to you all. So, the work at South Campus, can I just take this off here and walk? Make it a little easier. All right. Whoop. We're good. We're good. All right, so the work at South Campus, there's 2 major components, as Dr. Waterman mentioned. The first being relocating the existing cafeteria, which is currently in that gray area on the south end of the building. And just for orientation, the plan left here is south. The right-hand side, that would be the north end of the building. The field would be up in the upper left corner there. Relocating that cafeteria commons over to the north side where the existing music wing is currently, and then expanding into the courtyard. So it's serving a number of functions. One, trying to get it a little bit more central. It gets it nearer to the pickup and drop off where the students are. It's a place for them to stage in the morning. It allows it to be a space that can be used after school and be isolated from the rest of the building. So it's serving a number of functions in that location. And then converting the existing cafeteria area into a new music wing. This is just showing some of the second floor portions of the commons, which will allow us to bring in some shared spaces where kids can go and get extra help if they need it during lunchtime, before and after school. So some tutoring sessions and those sorts of things, having breakout spaces to collaborate. It also addresses some accessibility needs by that second story connection, bringing an elevator that allows people to get up and down to that second floor. So this central section of the building and this front section are 2 stories, so that helps serve those areas. So again, looking at a more blown up version of the common space, you can see the addition part would be where the seating is. Part of that is a large learning stair. That's an area where presentations can happen. Kids can learn to present in front of large groups. You can bring in outside experts. A number of things that can happen on that learning stair. One of the big things we're trying to accomplish with this is obviously a cafeteria common space is one of the biggest pieces of real estate in a school building. When you only have lunch in there for so many periods a day and it sits empty for the rest of the day, it seems kind of like wasted space. So allowing these other functions to happen there to maximize the value of that square footage is really the goal here. So allowing those other activities before and after school and during school that students can use this space. Actually, if you can go back 1 second, one other thing I would mention here. The entire courtyard area, that is also something that's going to be addressed. Right now, it's not accessible. So when kids leave, you can't go out one exit and get to another without having to go up and down steps. So it's allowing it to be universally accessible for anybody in the school to be able to navigate that. It also creates opportunities for outdoor learning. So on days like today, you're able to go out into that space and actually hold class out there. Again, just another look at the second floor area. Again, just common areas, their drop-in center for tutoring and just allowing different collaborative spaces that can be used. You can see on the bottom of the screen there, which we didn't highlight throughout this, but Dr. Waterman did mention, we are updating all of the toilet rooms throughout the building. So in total, 22 restrooms throughout the entire facility. So that's basically all of them, updating those to meet current accessibility needs. And just put, they haven't been touched since the building's been built, so updating those as well. Here's an image inside of the commons area, cafeteria area. You can see looking back at the learning stair, and then you can see out into the courtyard, bringing in some natural light into the space. So if you're familiar with North Campus, again, trying to bring some parity to some of the features that they have there. Just an image of the upstairs area, the collaborative space, so a lot of flexible furniture, an area where kids can come together and study throughout the day. So an image looking down from that learning stair, there's actually a projection screen that comes down to allow for presentations. You'll have different areas where you can have smaller meetings, so you can see some monitors on the wall where you can do individual smaller group presentations in the space as well. So really trying to get a lot of different uses out of that space. Cafe area where they can sell merchandise before and after school during sporting events, just another opportunity to be able to use this space when it's not during lunch hours. Just a quick image of an updated restroom facility. And then looking at the existing cafeteria space, which basically will be completely gutted down to the shell. Actually, sections of the roof will come up. We're already replacing the roof. That's one of those many roofs that are of the 91 vintage, so they're past their useful life. So as we're replacing the roof, it's an opportunity to be able to raise sections of that to accommodate the band, choral, and orchestra spaces, which typically want a higher volume space for performances, so similar to what we're in right now. So we're able to address that, and then also looking at the exterior of the building. But really what this does is give more appropriate spaces for those programs. It gets more appropriate practice rooms, storage areas. Those kids have a lot of storage needs, so we're addressing a lot of that in there. And then onto the north half there, having a number of different flexible classrooms that just allow the district to have a number of opportunities to use those spaces in different ways, whether it be large meetings, teacher get-togethers, and those types of things. They don't really have that space right now, so that's something that will allow for that as well. Just an interior image of what one of those music rooms would look like. Again, another vantage point from inside one of the rooms. Again, trying to bring some natural light into the space. Not too much glass because we don't want the sound traveling in or out of the space, so trying to limit that noise transfer with limited glazing. A few images from the exterior of the building, so working with some of the existing tones of the building and then some warmer grays, nothing that's going to be too out of character for the current campus. It'll look like it's been there for quite a while. And just a quick overview of what that courtyard space will look like. As I mentioned, the accessibility, you have doors there on the lower right corner, the upper left, and then connecting in the upper right and left as well, that you'll be able to get all the way around that area if you were in a wheelchair or had any other accessibility needs. Then just an image from that courtyard looking back at the new common space. And just a different vantage point from there. I think that's about it, Ed. All right.
Okay, Ed, can you actually go back to the rendering? So a couple of things I want to highlight just with this portion of phase one. First of all, as I talked about earlier, our community identified what these broad objectives are. And really, with this South Campus project, we're able to hit 4 of the 5. The objective we're not able to hit with this project is related to athletic and wellness facilities. We don't have any part of this project that is touching the athletic area or the physical welfare area. But certainly, being able to modernize our classrooms, in this case, renovate our music facilities is really important. The ability to develop additional collaborative spaces is really important. The accessibility and life safety components of this project are really a couple of things. Number one, we have an elevator that is on the west side of South Campus, so any student that has to move to the second floor or vice versa has to come to the west side of the facility. This cafeteria collaborative space will allow us to have an elevator on the east side of the building as well, so it'll just be easier to navigate. And then Ed mentioned we have an interior courtyard that students pass through all the time. However, our students who are wheelchair bound cannot do that because it involves steps. And so this project involves really redesigning the courtyard in a way that's more accessible to more students and staff. And then restrooms are a big deal. Through focus groups and through the conversations we've had with our students, you wouldn't think it was a big deal, but it is one of the most important parts of the student experience. And as Ed talked about, we haven't renovated our restrooms here at South Campus since it was built in 1956. So you can imagine what some of those restrooms look like. So we're really excited about that part of the project, being able to really modernize our restroom facilities. And Ed, can you go to the rendering that shows the restroom? I'm not sure what page it's on. So this is just a rendering of what our restrooms could look like. And then I think we have some residents here that live really close to South Campus. So if you scroll down to the exterior view of the music area, right there. So if you live southwest of our campus, this is really the view you would have of our renovated music area. Right now, that's our cafeteria. It's one floor, but that's what the renovated music area would projected to look like. So I think that's kind of a really good overview of what we're trying to accomplish here, not only overall, but specific to South Campus and specific to Phase 1. So that took about 25 minutes or so to get through, and now really we want to provide the opportunity for our audience to ask any questions or get any clarification on any part of the project. Go ahead. Okay.
With the construction beginning in the spring of this year here on South Campus, there are going to be parking areas limited. They may be completely eliminated for construction equipment or whatever, but that's going to have a very, very significant effect on those persons coming to any athletic event taking place either at the baseball diamond, football field, a B field, what have you. Fortunately or unfortunately, I live across the street
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate it, and I really appreciate that question. I'm going to repeat that question because we're live streaming this and also recording it. So just the question for those who weren't able to hear, question about planning for traffic patterns and for parking patterns on streets and parking lots and areas that are impacted by the construction. So there's kind of a two-part answer to that. So right now, I would say over the next couple of months, we're sort of completing the planning process from a discussion and ultimately awarding contracts and considering contracts at our board level. And so until that process happens, we don't have a contractor, but as soon as, assuming that process progresses, once we have a contractor, we would begin working with them immediately to identify what the potential concerns and obstacles are. And we'll have not only a plan for on campus for what's happening, but a communication plan to our residents to make sure you guys know what's happening as well. The area you're talking about specifically, if I understand it correctly, is the northwest corner of or the northwest part of our property, like the baseball field. I'm going to talk off the cuff here and say that that area is probably not going to be impacted, but I'm going to let Ed talk a little more about that.
Yep. So just to mention a couple of things, as far as parking during the day, we'll have contractors that'll be using spaces to be able to actually work on the site. After school hours and after construction hours, when you're generally having most athletic events and that sort of thing, there won't be any contractors parking, taking up any spaces. The plan is that there will be a trailer that will not be in the parking lot, that'll actually be in the grass area near that side of the building where they're entering into the courtyard. And generally, most of their equipment, Connex boxes and those things are most likely going to be in the courtyard itself. It's not like you'd think of a downtown construction site or something like that where we have major cranes and things like that sitting out for any lengthy period of time. Generally, if they're bringing a crane out for something, they're going to set stuff that day and it's out of here. They don't want to pay rental costs to keep it out here for a long time. So we have no anticipation of any major staging that's going to be sitting in the parking lot taking up any spaces. And obviously, if there's events going on, we're going to be extra cautious about what's going on at those times and make sure the contractor's aware that if for whatever reason that day they might have some steel that might be out there, it can't be out there. So they're used to working with schools and working around the logistics of how a school has to operate. And obviously, that's going to be a pretty critical part, especially with the athletic events. So.
May I reduce your comments to what I understand them to be?
Sure.
That is that the driver's ed lot, which is very often used open for people to drive in when there are ball games, either in the football field or the baseball diamond, and the parking lot that's immediately to the east of that, those two parking lots are always going to be available if there is an athletic event.
I can say
Completely no change.
correct. For construction purposes, I can't speak to what other activities may be going on at any given time, but the intent is not to have any construction staging take place in those areas that would eliminate any parking.
Where I guess we're going backwards and do construction versus design, which is okay. Is this going to happen during the summer as a typical school project to do, or year-round?
This is going to be probably in total around an 18-month project. So, I'm sorry. So the question was, is this going to be a typical summer project as we usually would see here? This is going to be a little bit longer, more of an 18-month project. The intention would be that potentially breaking ground this spring. We've had some pretty favorable weather, and that should continue. So, upon the board approving any bids, that would be the goal, is to start that addition work in the courtyard this spring. They would be relocating music in the cafeteria space. They'd be using existing gymnasium space for those functions so that the contractors can get ahead. The idea being that they're under roof and enclosed by winter, this coming winter, so that they can work inside throughout the year. It would extend through the year, through the next summer, and be turned over for that next fall school year is the intent. There's a lot of work. It's pretty intense to try and knock that out in a 2.5-month summer window. Is just not going to happen.
That makes sense. So you're that far along in design documents and permitting and everything else, if you're looking at a spring, this spring?
Correct.
Groundwork.
Yes.
And let me keep going on.
Sure.
And I think it would be good to point out to people as well, seeing the footprint of
Correct. Only, the question was, right. Yeah, the question was about the footprint of the school and it not growing on the perimeter, which is an accurate statement. The interior section of the courtyard, we are adding a portion inside of that footprint, but nothing on the outside.
And can the kids eat outside now?
And they do.
This past summer, we had zero communication about a helicopter that was going to be landing in our backyards. While it was a neat thing to experience, it was also mildly terrifying, having no idea that this was a planned event and being so close to a hospital that has helicopters land. What type of communication are we going to have for major things that are going on with this project?
Did we send letters? I thought, for some reason, I thought we sent letters, so we're,
Gardner lives on my block. I
Yeah.
had face-to-face conversation with him. We did not get a letter that said, we got a letter that said it could be occurring. We didn't know when.
Okay.
You know, I mean, that
So obviously, we need to be more specific with those communications and be better. So thank you for pointing that out, and certainly our apologies for last summer. Yeah, we're going to do everything we can to communicate this. And we have the list. That we have essentially 215 residents that got the letter for tonight's meeting, and so that is going to be our list of really where the people that we feel like could be most impacted and need the most communication. Now, aside from that, like events like this and the information we have is going to be accessible to everyone on our website and on social media. But for that group, the 215 residents that were invited to tonight specifically, we're gonna communicate more with you guys.
Okay. The other thing that I'd like to comment about, and I apologize because it has nothing to do with this project. I am all for the athletic things that go on that field. I love it. I absolutely love it. I was alarmed when a batting cage was put in my backyard with absolutely no notification, when it could have been placed adjacent to another dugout that would not have impacted anybody's property values because it wasn't adjacent to any properties. And when I spoke with Mr. Rumpke, once I realized what was happening, I was assured it was going to be landscaped. Nothing's happening. And I'm seeing beautiful landscaping around this building. Something's got to be done
Yeah.
with that batting cage.
Well, I'll share some exciting news, and you're speaking specifically about the softball field, which you must live close to the softball field. So the question was about the softball field and landscaping around the recent batting cages that were put up. Last week, our board actually approved a donation agreement with an individual who is donating $2 million to upgrade our softball field. We're just now getting started with the planning process of that, but to your point earlier, we'll communicate that planning process with all of our neighbors and make sure that you guys have an understanding of what we're planning for that.
It's really not necessary to send the letters out certified.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I think that's a requirement of the Village of Western Springs and their public hearing process. Is that right? Certified, yeah.
We did not send those out certified, but they did.
I think the village sent them out certified. We just sent them. Yep. And you're right. That hearing is a week from tonight. And that was really one of the purposes of tonight, obviously, is to share all of this with our community, but really to give you guys an opportunity before the hearing next week to come hear about the project from us and hopefully get questions answered. Do you have a question?
I did. You mentioned the general contractor, and you say, yes, you'd be quizzing them on their whole implementation process and schemes and delivery points, and I see Wolf Road kind of being a mess if they're not delivering on early hours and off hours.
Yeah, there's a couple answers to that question. So the question was just about ultimately the contractor and the planning process and all the requirements they have. Even before that, the district has a procurement process that we have to go through to identify a contractor. It's a standard bidding process. Once that happens, though, it really then becomes a series of meetings and planning discussions with the contractor to answer all the questions that you brought up. Anything else to share on that?
The only other thing I would add is that typically the pool contractors that are working on these school projects with us, that's what they do. They understand, again, the logistics of trying to run and operate a school facility and the nuances of when you can do drop-off and pick-up and those things and trying to work around that. So most of the players that will be involved in that have done this quite a bit and are usually very willing and understanding how to work with us to make sure that we don't have headaches around that sort of thing.
I don't have kids here anymore, so I'm more worried about traffic on Wolf Road as opposed to the students.
Sure.
It's important, but it should be part of the interview process of their implementation.
Absolutely.
Other questions?
My name is Bill, I live behind that school.
Hi, Bill.
The cooling towers that were put up last year, there was one and then followed by another one. The noise level rose considerably. Different neighbors had different opinions on that, but more noise. Now we're having a third put in. What type of mitigation for the sound, control, the landscaping, the 3 arborvitaes that are out there now?
Yeah, so we actually had a question that came into us yesterday about that in preparation for tonight's meeting. So I'm going to have Ed talk about just the sound level of cooling towers. Repeat that question, I forgot.
Yeah, so the question was around the existing cooling towers and the increased noise that those have brought, and then what a third cooling tower will do. Just in terms of the overall decibel level increase from going from the 2 to the 3, this unit's actually a lower decibel output than what the one that went in last year was. I think it was last year. It's not sort of an additive thing, like every time you add a 60 decibel unit, it goes up to 120. The net decibel level, we're expecting around 2 to 3 increase from what it is now, so barely perceptible, but if what's out there currently is an issue, that's the intent of the arborvitaes, but it's not like we can't add more to that. So that's really the first complaint we've heard about that issue, but it's certainly easily addressed through some additional landscaping around those. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the problem with it, it's certain type of trees, the cooling towers themselves, when the debris falls off, it falls into the units and then causes a lot of damage to them. So we ended up having to rebuild one of those entirely because of that damage. So having to pick the right landscaping to go around there, either that or it's a screen wall or something to that effect to just kind of dampen that sound.
Other questions? And we always say, like, if you don't think of the question tonight, but tomorrow morning you think of it, please call, email, either myself, our Director of Business Services, Brian Stashak, oversees it from a project planning perspective. Of course, Mr. Gardner is our Associate Principal at South Campus, so call us, email us. We want to make sure that we get your questions answered, get your concerns resolved as they come along as quickly as possible. So don't feel like if you walk out of here tonight and you didn't get your question answered, you can't reach out to us any other time.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, the scheme looks great, so it looks very exciting to get that cafe in the middle of everything will be awesome for getting some things. There was a mention of ticket booths somewhere on the
Yep.
letters. Is that phase 1?
Yeah, it wasn't included in the original phase 1, but we actually just did a bid opening for this whole project last week, and it was included as an alternate bid, and that's basically in the 10 years ago when, actually it was less than, I think, when Bennett Field was last resurfaced with turf field, I guess you call it the foundations or the anchors of the ticket booths were installed, but just not the ticket booths. So we've been kind of talking about for a few years of getting to a point where we can include those, but that's simply an alternate bid that our board is going to discuss at a future meeting to determine whether it's something to consider.
So is there a drawing of it in the map ready?
I don't think do we have a drawing of the?
It's not as part of this. We can certainly get
Yeah, we can get it. It's not, yeah.
Bennett Field has been a thorn in my side, so noise and everything else, so I assume it's away from 47th Street.
Yeah, it's actually, it's kind of at the entrance. So like the driver ed range, yeah, it's as you enter Bennett Field, right there by the water. Yeah, actually right between the water tower and the tennis courts.
Lights, no more amplified sound or anything else from them?
From,
Ticket booths.
no, not, yeah, not from the ticket booths, right? Yep.
Since the subject has been broached,
So right now, the agreement is that we do keep that open, right? And are you saying it's not open, or you're just asking if it's going, yeah. Our interest would be in continuing to keep that open for,
You are not yet planning
right,
for the athletic part, or
right.
will begin to do so. I would assume that subject is gonna come up
Yeah.
someplace along the line.
Yeah, our interest would be in continuing to allow that as an accessible pathway for our students, coming to school. And the residents who walk the track and all of that, for sure. Yep. Other questions?
I just wanted to ask Dr. Waterman if then, with all the exciting work and talking about it being accessible to residents, those collaborative spaces and some of those really great facilities that'll be in the cafeteria area, those will be available for public to use as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. All of our facilities are able to be shared with our community and rented by community organizations, per our rental agreements. But we're gonna have a lot, like, in addition to what Ed was talking about earlier with the learning stairs and the big space, there's also some smaller breakout rooms that are going to be able to be used by our students and staff during the day, but are also great meeting spaces for community organizations and student groups and community groups. Other questions? So I think with that, it's about 7:45. We're certainly going to hang around for a few minutes. So if you have individual questions, please feel free to stick around. As I said before, don't think that you have to get that question answered tonight. If you think of something this week, please let us know. But I think more importantly, we want to thank everyone for coming tonight, anyone listening online as well. We'll certainly post the recording of this video so that at our community's convenience, they can watch the information. And then I'm always going to plug the QR code on your screen to go to our facilities website. That will be our warehouse for keeping everything updated on how this project progresses. And I think most importantly, we know how grateful we are to be in a community that supports such amazing education and such amazing facilities. And we know that wouldn't be possible without our community's support. And we're really excited about these projects coming up. So thank you all for coming tonight, and have a great week.